Uru is seraphim for ancient dragon culture. Uru, yeah? As in Aku versus Draku. So this is Cherokee. Now, admittedly, the writers, the origins of Cherokee and the origins of Ophanim, they both were involved with Greek, so it's kind of a long story. But just to get an idea how important this is, the name of the person who narrated the origin of Christianity to Mary, the name of the person who narrated the origin of the Mormons to Joseph Smith, the name of the person who narrated the origin of the Muslims to Muhammad, the same guy did it. His name was Gabriel. He's a seraphim. He's part of this family. What was his agenda? Well, it was about the recovery of a gene pool, in this case, the fallen branch of the seraphim family. The seraphim, basically, you could think of as high-winged dragon, and the seraphim family had a genetic disaster. And that's the reason we're allowed to tell that story, because we're interested in the science of that genetic disaster. The genetic disaster was called Nephilim, which means the fallen one, and in science terms it means those who lost the ability to attract charge to their DNA. The Enki looked like a frog, so there's a clue. And that doesn't mean bad, but the Uru dragon culture, this is Enki. I guess we're going to do some of this story. We said we're going to tell some of this story this afternoon. We're going to do a little bit more DNA science before we did this story. But since you bring it up, this is what Enki looked like. His name was Sam, and he looked like a frog, as you can see. This is what his mother looked like. This is what his iPhone looked like. His iPhone is called ME in Sumerian, which means computer disk. It actually means the flower of the crystal of the origins of life, what Dan Beers calls the Ganesh particle. And Zechariah Sitchin translates ME to mean computer disk, as in measurement, Me Asa Uru. But anyway, this guy here, Anton Parks, had a bunch of Kundalini experiences like me, and downloaded Enki's digital voice recorder, and wrote excellent series of books, which I'm recommending to you, called The Chronicles of Girtu. These are the websites. This is my analysis. This is the English. This is the original French. And Valerie's helping us with the French. But this is my suggestion, if you'd like to get a little past Zechariah Sitchin in terms of the origins of DNA, the history. This is my suggestion to you. And these are some of the pictures. And this is Enki's family. And so what we're going to tell is a little part of how that story leads up to the Uras family. Because a subtitle of this series of books, here's the books, the Black Star, Adam Genesis, Testimony of the Virgin, Revelations of the Phoenix. These are the French originals. They're just gradually being translated into English. But there's plenty in English there so you can have fun. The subtitle is The History of Uras. U-R-A-S. The Uras culture. And remember when we said that we were talking about the Maori, and this was only a speculation on my part, that the word Ma'ur, there's so many words Uru in the Maori tradition, like Rot Urua, just like here in Australia you have Il Uru's Rock, right? So somebody might want to know who Uru was. And we talked to the Maori shaman there, and she said they knew their ancestors were Aryan, the Aryan race. And we discussed the meaning of the term Aryan, Aura. Au means gold. So the origin of these things, the origin, means those who had gold in their aura. In German, Ur means the ancient ones. But I'm suggesting we translate in general the word Uru as an Ebi Uru, Nibi Uru, and Jerusalem Uru Asa Elem, Azores Asuras, Dinosaur Din Asa Uru. That I'm suggesting we translate the word Uru to mean of the ancient dragon blood, or of the ancient river of charge in DNA would be another way to translate. So, for example, you have Hungaria, is on Aguria, Magyar means Agur, Bulgaria, etc. So now you know where the origin of the word Europe and the Urals and Hebrew and Nebrew. Somebody ought to tell you who is Uru. And I'm suggesting to you, if you'd like to know who Uru was, that you read Anton Park's The History of the Uras Family, which means from Alpha Draconis, or Draco, as in Draconian. And that culture was the fallen remnant of the Nephilim race, who then became what we call the Anunnaki, the Nephilim and the Elohim, and that they were here because of a genetic disaster. And that Gabriel's agenda was about fixing a DNA problem. And the DNA problem was teaching the kids to get enough charge in their blood to squirt their plasma back into stars. In other words, if you get stuck on a planet and your plasma body is not coherent enough to squirt through stars again, you're really stuck. That ain't good. So the rest of the Seraphim family says, oh dear, what a tragedy. A whole branch of our family just had a genetic disaster and they're stuck over there. Oops, let's go over there and try to fix it. And this is Gabriel wandering over and saying, hey guys, get it together, charge your DNA and get your plasma out of there. Except the kids are stupid. I mean, they're kids. And so it isn't about it isn't about the fact that reptilian means bad. It isn't about good guys or bad guys. It's about kids who are slow to learn their lessons, actually. Now, at this point, before we play with our story, we're going to do more of this story and try to bring it up to the stories of the Aboriginals with Jenny here and others, which would be fun. But we skipped something. And what we skipped was a chunk of the science. So I'd like to go back now. We kind of got carried away because somebody asked about is he reptilian? You got me going. Oops. But the idea was to do some serious science before we're allowed to have fun fairy tales, right? And the chunk of the science that we skipped now, and this is the reason to tell the story, is to motivate you and your kids to be interested in the science. The part of the science that we skipped was how indeed does DNA learn how to swallow charge? That's the science that's of interest here. And for that, I'd like to step back a minute, and we'll return to this story later, to be continued. But the science that was supposed to be the beginning of our afternoon was how does DNA learn to absorb charge? And if we look at this structure here, this is, remember we said, you step a dodecahedron down a helix and you get DNA. So the dodecahedron is a rotated cube. 5 cubes a dodeca, so 4D. Rotate a dodeca down a helix, you have 5 dimensions. 5x is the symmetry superposed. 5 rotations in the thread that is DNA. Remember, 5 spins inside and 7 spins outside? Then you take that thread and you braid it recursively 7 times, remember, and the donut gets thick. The DNA gets lit and the plot thickens. So the trick is to get the DNA braiding properly. And to get the DNA braiding properly, we need to know how it absorbs charge. This is an introduction to the reason your DNA requires bliss experience. I'm trying to show you as an electrical engineer why it is that your DNA requires bliss. Because this is what the Nephilim did not have. Oops, they lost something. The Vestal virgins had a bliss process. Then they got melatonin, serotonin in their menstrual blood. They could feed that to their babies. The menstrual blood was called starfire, oil of Messe, from which you get the word Messiah. It served the function of royal jelly, and you could make babies who had star-navigating glands called oil of Messe, Messiah, crocodile juice. Lawrence Gardner tells that story correctly. So, well, when they no longer had bliss in their temples, what happened to the menstrual blood of the Vestal Virgin? No more melatonin, serotonin, no more starfire to feed the baby, and suddenly your kids are no longer getting the good